Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. Friday Fun Day with Sam Byler. I'm your host, Sam Byler. I'm kind of kicked back tonight, y'all. Lost my hat, got my weekly shower in, and took my wife out to dinner and got to chill out for a little bit. And I'm excited about who I've got on tonight. Shannon Latham, the boss, the Shed Geek. How are you, man?
I'm doing really good, and I mimic your energy. I'm laid back tonight. This is one day after my 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I appreciate it. We took the day off to spend together. And I actually put work down for the whole day. And that was
Nice.
very, very difficult for me to do. But I come prepared, Sam. I come prepared for Fun Day Fridays with my Shed Hauler Brotherhood gear. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh yeah, I did. I wondered if you were going to mention something about that or not.
I'm representing. I'm representing for Sam and all the guys there in the haulers and what they do. Yeah, I always enjoy the anything shed hauler related. So
Absolutely. 25 years.
25 years.
Are you starting to feel old?
I am. I look back at my 10-year wedding anniversary. We went down to Nashville, stayed at the Opryland Hotel, and I had a head full of hair. And I was like, I don't know what happened in such a short amount of time. Now it'll grow. It's just and it's not even like the hairline's missing. It's just thin, Sam. It's just thin. But I can't stand to let it grow out even a little bit now. I've been shaving it for so long. I wish it would all just go ahead and turn loose. So but yeah, 25 years. And we started dating 29 years ago when I was just a sophomore in high school. And it's really neat to reflect on things like that, because that's maybe one of my favorite things about the podcast is we don't just we do hammer sheds, right? We hammer carports and all that stuff now. But we talk about life. We just talk about like real life and how family and ministry and all those things sort of combine to make up your life. And I read a post the other day of someone who had been married to their high school sweetheart for 14 years. Actually, her and him were married, but she was writing the post, and she was like, get ready for a roller coaster because you're going to meet so many different versions of each other over the years. And when I think back to me and Deanna, whenever I was 15 and we were dating versus being 44 and now grandparents, it really is a roller coaster looking back over the 25 years of just marriage, work, family, thinking about how she supported me through all of my endeavors,
Yep.
the craziness, the craziness of life, being stubborn and being stubborn and being driven in my younger age. I've had to come home. I bet you've had to do this with Miss Karen, Sam. I've had to come home at least once or more and explain to my wife why I got fired today.
Yep.
And she stood by me anyway,
I was just thinking we could dedicate this whole episode just to our spouses, to our wives.
Not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah. And I see so many people in this industry that I look up to and respect, and I see the relationship they have with their wives. And it's just like, man, it's a big deal. And we were talking about, was I talking to you about that the other day, about how we don't celebrate marriage, big anniversaries anymore?
Yeah.
25th wedding anniversary for my mom and dad in a culture where people stayed married forever. 25th wedding anniversary was celebrated almost like a wedding. We
Hmm.
threw I mean, we had the whole thing. We had the table set up front and everything. We had the people, I keep witnesses. What do you call it? I'm drawing a blank here. I'm getting old. But we had it all set up just like a wedding. A lot of people renewed their vows. And then, the 50th, that's a golden one.
Hmm.
And we don't hear that anymore. It's just, I mean, you took the day off and went and celebrated. Good on you. But there was, it's like sometimes I wonder if we shouldn't be promoting or doing more. Like we have time to promote anything else or do anything else. But marriage is under attack in this country. We know it, as conservatives. The family's under attack. You said you became a grandpa.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just, man, that thrills me to no end. I could have been a grandpa in fact, if my son would have had a kid when I did, I'd have a 13-year-old grandkid.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way. I don't even want to think about that.
Isn't that
Um, Now
surreal? Yeah.
they're actually getting old enough that they're actually starting to talk about kids a little bit, and it's like, nah.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right on celebrating family, family culture, life, and things like that. And um, you know, everything we do in the shed industry, I'm using generalized statements here by saying everything, but generally speaking, everything that you do in your work is to support your family. And I
Yes.
heard a pastor say one time, your family is your first ministry. Your family is the first ministry that God trusted you with. My buddy Dylan, Dylan likes work so much. He says, man, I love to be here. I mean, I actually eat it up. He said, God gave man work even before he gave him a woman, you know,
Yeah.
and so I love having these conversations and how they roll into your life and your work and your ministry, and how they all just kind of collectively come together, at least for me. And I think that was one of the biggest changing points in my life is realizing that church wasn't something you did on Sunday, or God wasn't something you put in a box and you check the box.
Hmm.
Family was a box that you checked. I spent time with the kids, or I supported them, or I did this. Work was just a box. I somehow feel like I found the magic, at least for me, whenever I began to say, hey, sometimes you're at work, but God calls you to pray for a customer, maybe not sell them something.
I got a big day tomorrow. I have a fully finished 18 by 40 cabin that's going to require 2 to 3 meals to get it delivered. Way back in the sticks and down a dirt lane. With all the rain we've had lately, it's going to be a mess. Well, it needs a bigger mule.
Well, when you talk, Cardinal listens, and you asked for it. With its diesel-powered 69-horse engine and capacity to move 40,000-pound sheds, the Mule 9069 is ready to turn your big days into just another day in the good life.
Ah, that's right. You're talking about the one they had up in Michigan at the shed show. That monster mule, that thing was awesome.
That's right. It's the one you've seen at all the Shed Holler barbecues.
Man, yeah, there's nothing like a little diesel donkey to make my day go so much better.
Maybe today is take your son to work day
Yep.
and let him understand what dad does. And we've literally done that to the point where he's editing this podcast, right?
Yes.
So it's just, to me, it's just really important to have that sense of community. And that's one thing you said earlier about conservatives, that they do well. And one thing that I've even been very envious about in the Anabaptist culture. I talk to you guys all the time, all kinds of guys that are Mennonite, Amish, and they'll say, well, I was out of town. We had to go 4 states over for a wedding. It was my cousin's daughter's third dog that was getting married or something. And we went to the wedding, and I'm like, holy cow, like, you guys they come out in such groves in support of each
Yeah.
other and
Yeah.
support of like the holy matrimony of marriage, right?
Hmm.
And that's pretty impressive. Uh, I don't feel like we had that even 25 years ago with a lot of our family and friends. Several didn't come to the wedding. Most wrote us off, said we'd never make it. And to be honest with you, we're lucky we did. To be honest with you, they might have been right. We've had to fight through everything to keep this thing together, but we've done that. We worked to keep it together as opposed to letting it fall apart. So, um, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic, interesting thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know a pile of shops out there that, I mean, manufacturing, hauling, more of those two. I see some of it in the rent to own world, maybe a little bit in sales, but in manufacturing, you see a lot of places that are family run businesses. You know, dad and his sons, daughters involved, spouses involved, family operations. And then the hauling side, it seems like in the past 2 years, I'm seeing more and more of, maybe it's just the industry's aging to a point to where some of those guys, back in the Tennessee Bash that were all what I called Billy the Kids and the Young Guns and all those guys, they're starting to get a little older. Their kids are getting a little bit older, and you're starting to see them bring their kids around more. That's back to the values of the shed industry. It's huge. It's a big deal. We all have our love hate relationships with it and stuff, but at the end of the day, you see more of that. We had that in construction growing up as kids. We'd all go to work with our dads and the guys that were, farming. The kids stayed on the farm and farmed, and to be able to see that brought together the way it is in the shed industry. And yeah, I was actually leading up to, what you've done with your family. They're all tied in working with you. I mean, you cannot ask for more than that. That's the top, that's the top of the mountain.
Yeah, it tickles me to be able to have Deanna here working with me every day for multiple reasons. One, some people say there's no way I could work with my spouse, and I got to tell you, me and Deanna sort of work like a well-oiled machine in terms of like work, even our uh, personal life. Like we complement each other well, and I think we're a good representation in many ways of opposites attract in some way. But me and Deanna have a little bit different than traditional roles in our marriage. A lot of the guys are quiet, don't speak a whole lot. You hear that the ladies like yap 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 or whatever. Well, it's just the opposite for us. I'm the yapper, and
Mhm.
I'll talk to anybody that I can see. I sit down on a Walmart bench, and next thing you know, I'm 10 minutes into a deep story with them, and Deanna's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, where he works, what he did for a living, or I don't know. I just find people interesting. I think that's why I started a podcast. I wanted to interview all these interesting people because I genuinely find their stories interesting. But we work together well, and the whole family works, together well. Troy, Aaliyah works for us part time. We get to see the baby sometimes whenever she comes over. So that works out that she can work and we can sit and watch the baby a little bit. But no, it really is. It's become a real family dynamic for us. And for a guy who struggled to figure out purpose in life and purpose in work, I would say that I've hit the jackpot about as well as I could possibly hope for. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Agree. Yep. So, one of the guys that always, I'll just give a shout out to Quality in Texas, the stripes there.
Strides.
And,
Yeah.
what they're doing there. I love both of us. We love going there and hanging out with
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah.
A couple of brothers and their dad there. And then they have another brother over here in Georgia that I get to see. I need to get back over there and see him again. I haven't seen him in a while to get by there and see him. It's a big deal to me that we can be in an industry that is still fighting for something that's becoming more and more gray, vague. Um, They're trying to make it to where it's not even important anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They want it to be downplayed as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do they use in the news? They use the term, the nuclear family,
Yeah.
in the sense of a nucleus, and how it's you know, a lot of that comes from our roots, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but the reality is I'm better with family. I'm not better on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm better because I'm married. I mean, I think that she makes me a better person. Um,
So I got a question. Does that stem from corporate America? I remember back in the 70s, my dad would go to breakfast with some of the local business guys and stuff. And we were a small barn shop out in the middle of nowhere in Missouri, and it was a struggle. It was people talk about struggling today. Let me tell you something. Central Missouri in the mid 70s, it was terrible. Um and he would, dad was a little bit like me. He knew a lot of the people in the community, got to know a lot. And they would basically talk about being up against the machine. And the machine to them was corporate America. They knew it was coming. And they were talking about how it would divide families. They would get wives to go back to go to work, and the kids would be at home by themselves. And um, they called it selling their soul to the machine. And so they're trying to make it irrelevant. And hear me out on this. The reasoning behind it is if the family is more important than the job, then you're never committed to the job.
oh man, what a can of worms.
Yeah.
I literally heard a former shed hauler who's still very related in the shed hauling business on a phone call. I returned a phone call his today, and he said he literally told the girls at the office that relationships are more important than the job, and they was like, no, don't say that, or something along the lines of that. He was like, that's absolutely the case. It'll always be the case that family will come first.
Unlock the power of productivity with Cardinal Leasing. Are you looking to elevate your business operations with top-tier equipment? Look no further than Cardinal Leasing. We offer a wide range of reliable and high-quality equipment tailored to meet your unique needs. Flexible leasing options. Whether you need short-term rentals or long-term solutions, our customizable leasing plans are designed to provide maximum flexibility and affordability. Conventional financing available. Cardinal Leasing also offers great conventional finance options for those of you that prefer that over-lease purchase options. Expert support. Our team of experienced professionals is here to guide you every step of the way, ensuring a seamless leasing experience. Boost efficiency. With our top-of-the-line equipment, you can enhance productivity, reduce downtime, and achieve your business goals faster. Why choose Cardinal Leasing? Competitive rates, exceptional customer service, hassle-free process, quick and easy approvals. Don't let outdated equipment hold you back. Partner with Cardinal Leasing today and take your business to the next level. Contact us now. Visit our website at equipment.cardinalleasing.us or call us at 618-803-4086 to get started.
There's probably a political avenue that we can take just off of this conversation. When you think about what a shed hauler is, what dominates 90% male, would you say?
Oh, yeah. We have
I,
good female ones out there, but they're few and far between.
right. And then sales is going to be a much different number. I don't know what that number is, but it's going to be considerably different. And I would think that there's going to be a much higher level of female participation sort of in that. Manufacturing, I would make the assumption that it's going to be male dominated in many cases, maybe not completely, but I'd be curious of what that percentage is.
Dude, that's interesting. Do you know a single female builder?
So I know a couple like that either own manufacturing or have,
Yeah.
or I've seen families. I mean, I never will forget, working for Irvin at Summit and going down to Advance, Missouri to David Troyer's place, and his whole family was out there building sheds. I'm talking about kids, everybody, you know what I mean? They'd be out there just hammering away, and Mennonite family, and I was so impressed by their family atmosphere. You know what I mean? The way they would all jump in and just get a job done. It kind of reminded me of growing up, in the 80s, where my dad worked at a kitty litter plant. And he was a maintenance foreman. My dad had a 6th grade education. His dad made him quit. All the boys quit when they got to 6th grade, and made them cut wood for a living, because that's how they made their living. And but my dad learned how to be good with his hands. He was self-taught. They were poor, so taught himself how to change brakes. Then he started teaching himself how to work on vehicles. Then next thing you know, he's pretty handy, right? He's pretty mechanical. And when he gets a job there, years later on into his life, he made for a really good maintenance foreman. But he would bring us up there to that place and have us help mow. I mean, as a family unit, we'd help mow the grass, or he was responsible for filling the soda machines on the side. These were little side gigs, little side hustles he took to help try and make money for the family. And I don't know what we mowed. I bet we mowed 3 or 4 acres at least back then. And this wasn't like a football field. This was like very patchy, mow some here, weed eat here, big field here. I think he got paid $50 to mow that, something like that. Back then. Of course, we got none of that, right? Because we were just, family helping out. We were just kids, just trying to do our part. But I felt like that did a lot of good for us. But while we're on this subject and how you think about the family dynamic in the shed industry, my dad was able to make a living, because my mom, we still talk about it to this day, because in 1985, health insurance used to cost $3 for the whole family per check.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what I pay for health insurance today? For just me and Deanna. Troy's got his own. Aaliyah's married off and on Mason's insurance through the fire department. We pay for insurance. We get no subsidy. We pay $1,500 a month for insurance. So it's one of those things where I'm like, wow, $3, And then I think back to the 80s during that time where, I could sense the pressure on our family financially, even back then, for my dad, who was making good money, that my mom ended up having to go to work to kind of help. And Sam, that changed everything. That changed everything for our family. My mom used to get up in the mornings and she would fix us breakfast before school. She took care of the home. She took care of the bills. She took care of all the errands. Like, my dad's job was to go work, bring in money for the family, take care of stuff around the house, right? That's what he did. As far as like the car or mowing or stuff like that, my mom took care of everything else. And you could sense it even whenever she went to work. Everything changed for all of us, right?
Yeah.
There was no breakfast in the morning. It was cereal. She wasn't up cooking eggs. She was tired because she had to work. Dinner changed, because dinner wasn't on the table necessarily every night, strict at 4 or 4:30 or 5 o'clock or whatever we ate. So things just change whenever you do. And I'd be curious at how many people in the shed industry and how they view it in terms of like the family dynamic in their business.
Yep.
Something we haven't really hit on, is it?
Not really. There's been occasions when we'll kind of tap dance around the subject of the supporting cast behind us.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that a little bit, but not the outright attack that we've seen the last 20 years on the actual structure of family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I believe if my dad was alive today, he would say that what they were afraid of in the 70s is exactly what we've gotten. I'm sure there's old guys out there that had those same conversations back in those days, but Central Missouri was a very, very poor place
Mm-hmm.
back in the mid 70s. And some of that area even still is. Like, I go back and visit every once in a while, and it just kind of blows me away. I am very blessed and to be living in the area I'm in, other than the curse of traffic. It's awful here. We went in like today. We wanted to go eat early tonight. Wanted to take Aaron and Haley out, and got a buddy here, John, that's trying to help me walk through, what the future looks like for what I'm doing right now, which is a whole separate podcast. But it was so we headed into town. It was probably 10 after 5, and we're running back roads into town. And there is nothing but lines and lines of traffic coming out at us. And it blows me away at the amount of people that we have in this area. But it also makes for a strong economy. It makes for a good way to make a living. There's plenty to do here, all that. But I'm like, man, I'm just ready to move, back to Central Missouri where there's nobody.
Yeah. No, you guys are getting busier and busier in that state. Seems like all the time, South Carolina and North Carolina. Where exactly in Central Missouri were you?
North Central Missouri.
Okay.
We were all the way up on US 36, which is the top route across the top of the state.
Okay.
Between Chillicothe and Hannibal, a little place called Brookfield, Missouri.
Okay.
Some of the ones that'll listen to this, they'll be like, "Oh, I know exactly where that's at," and they'll be
Well,
like, "Wonder who he knew up there."
I think just here in Hannibal alone is kind of interesting. I took a job. So I went to boot camp in Central Missouri, right? I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri,
Yeah,
there in west of Rolla.
yeah,
So that would have been in the summer of '98. When I got out, I was working in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I
yeah.
was working for a company called D&K. They used to deliver pharmaceutical supplies to pharmacies, including medicines. And I used to
Mm.
meet a guy in Hannibal, Missouri on the midnight shift. He would drive from Des Moines, Iowa, and I would drive from Cape Girardeau, and we would meet in Hannibal. We'd swap vans and then head on back our own separate ways. And that route happened 5 nights a week. So it's kind of interesting to just, of course, Hannibal's halfway, Missouri's halfway famous for Mark Twain and everything else. But your lifestyle and mine, even though you grew up, under a little bit of different uh, culture, would have been very similar in the sense that, didn't grow up with a whole lot of money and things like that. And so you really relied on dad to, help, make a living. And mom pitched in where she could, you know what I mean? She would always jump in and help out and things like that. And I see that same thing today whenever I go to shed expos or trade shows or the shed hauler bash or any of the local barbecues that you see. Kids come out, wives come out, family comes out and support. It's really a neat environment, and it's really made us all feel welcome, especially coming from not within the culture of the Anabaptist community. You sometimes feel a little bit out of place, almost even, because I don't know the people. Like we call it the name game, right? Like you guys will be like, oh, was he kin to such and such, and they lived in such and such, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? But you guys all do that, and there's such a connectivity there. But honestly, it's a bit of envy for me because I knew what it was like to grow up with a big family and cousins and all that, and they were always around. And my kids haven't really got to experience much of that, to be honest with you, Sam. And I see that family dynamic play out certainly at the shed events, and um, maybe we need to be moving towards that more instead of away from that. Maybe this is the cost of progress. You know,
Yeah, I don't, that the cost of progress is, I don't, I know what you mean. I don't like the term because it's like, um, progress should be able to happen without the cost of what I hold dear to me.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, like my mom, she never went to work. She never got a job. She was always at home, but she's the one that kept the cost of living so low because she kept a garden and she planted all this stuff and she knew how to cook good and she knew how to make do with stuff. And, she learned how to, but $20 a week for groceries, that was it. And, the rest of it came out of the garden, man, it's a whole different world, man. It's just crazy.
my
And
grandma.
women out there still doing that. They're still making it work.
Yeah,
One reason the Amish don't have to have near as much is because they know how to have just as much. They just know how to do it better and easier.
yeah, yeah. No, you're
So,
right. My grandma would, you know, can things for the winter. I mean, she'd wrap everything up in that white paper, whatever it's called, that freezer paper,
oh
and
yeah, free.
she'd have so much stuff in the freezer, but she would just keep stuff in general. She was, she wasn't hoarding to be hoarding. I think she was, she grew up as a child during the Great Depression, and you kept everything you could get your hands on. So for them, we're going to use this one day, rang true because she made use of it one day. So she just kept stuff, and we had so much stuff in her basement to get rid of after she passed. We were just like, why would she keep this? But that mentality was, when everything was scarce, you had to kind of keep what you could to get by. I mean, you had, like you said, you had to make do.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone. No cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
You said something about canning. You reminded me of one of my favorite Amish Mennonite jokes. This couple moved into a community where there was a lot of Amish and Mennonites, and they were trying to fit in. It was out in the country, and they were doing the whole raise a garden and everything, and trying to keep their cost of living down and stuff. And one day the husband come home. He sat down there at the table, and his wife had made dinner and everything, and they're sitting there eating. And he said, he said, I stopped in and talked to those Mennonites down the road again today. And he said, they said one of the most peculiar things, he says, I've ever heard. He said, I asked them what they do with all their sweet corn. And he said, she looked at me and she said that They eat what they could, and what they couldn't, they could. And his wife looked at him and she goes, "Are you sure that's what she said?" And he's like, "Yes, that's exactly what she said. She said that they eat what they could, and what they couldn't, they could." And he said, "And I can't figure out what she's talking about." So a couple days later, the wife's in town and she come back through there, and sure enough, the Mennonite lady's out there in the garden. So she pulled over there to the side of the road and she walked over there and she, "Hey, it's a beautiful day. How you doing today?" and everything. "Oh, we're doing great. She says, "My husband come home the other night and he told me the most peculiar thing I've ever heard of. He said that he asked you about what you do with all your sweet corn, and you told him that you eat what you could and what you couldn't, you could." And the Mennonite lady looked at her a little bit and she goes, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I would have said that." And she's like, "Well, what did you tell him?" And she goes, "Well, I told him we eat what we can, and what we can't, we can."
I felt like you were going some direction similar to that. I wasn't exactly sure. I got to tell you, I don't hear too many Amish and Mennonite jokes.
Oh, I got a whole bunch of them. You want to make another episode? Oh,
I don't hear too often. But yeah, I think people appreciate that.
How many Mennonites can you get in a band?
I don't know.
One more.
Yeah, I didn't
Boys,
recognize so many things from the culture, but I'm so much wiser now after speaking with so many different people, and I say wiser. I guess I'm just more attuned to culture and how different things work, and it's really opened up my eyes not only to not growing up in that culture, that religion, but even other cultures and religions, at least being more open-minded to thoughts and things and the way that people do stuff, and asking questions and being inquisitive rather than being so judgmental. I feel like that's the human condition in many cases. If we don't understand something, the first thing we do is criticize it, because it's not like us.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. This was part 1 of a 2-part episode, so be sure to listen next week to finish today's podcast.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.